We've got the live stream running and we've reached 6:30. Mr. Mayor, we have all members present and you may begin.
Okay, Linda, thank you very much. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call to order this committee of the whole meeting of the Council of the Town of Saugeen Shores and welcome all members of the committee, both here and virtual, and welcome all members of the community who are watching us via the live stream this evening. We're glad you're with us. The second item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those to declare. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime if you need to. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments. We have no open forum requests this evening, so that moves us on to delegations. And we have 3 delegations this evening, and I'll just remind all the delegations before we get started that council has allotted 10 minutes for each of our delegations this evening, so we'd appreciate it if you'd keep within those timelines for us. So we'll get started then with our first delegation, and it is from Maureen Crawford, Minnie Jakes, and they're here to talk to us about the annual update from the Accessibility Advisory Committee. So we'll bring on Maureen, and Minnie's already here.
Perfect, thank you, and good evening to all. I'm just going to start with sharing the names of those that sit on the Town of Saugeen Shores Committee. I'm the chair, which is Maureen Crawford. Members are Libby Thaw, Bill McKee, Anne Vera Davinsky, Amy McFarland, Tim Garrett, and associate members are Minnie Jakes, Joyce Johnson, and Doug Longmire. And our council rep is Cheryl Grace, and staff resource is Tracy Edwards, the deputy clerk. And the purpose of our deputation this evening is to update council on the work that the Accessibility Advisory Committee has accomplished over the past year, update you on some committee projects, as well as some budget considerations. The committee meets once a month to address accessibility and community concerns. We've adopted a new method with COVID protocols being in place, being that we meet electronically the first Wednesday of the month, with the thoughts of meeting twice a year in person to allow us to still do connections and then resuming with Zoom. Some of the updates that our committee has had with projects, the first one being Universal Housing Guide, which is our newest project, and it's working with members of the Attainable Housing Committee to develop a attainable housing accessibility guide, which will assist developers when designing new attainable housing.
Looks like we may have lost Maureen. We'll just give her the
possibly Maureen, if you can shut your video off and continue with your audio. Your screen is frozen.
May have lost her altogether, so why don't Minnie, you carry on, and if we get Maureen back, we'll bring her back in.
Okay. Okay, so the hope is for everyone to have a forever home, and as we age and our needs change, you'll be able to stay in your own home successfully and safely. The document is a work in progress at this time. Coming up is Accessibility Awareness Week. National Accessibility Awareness Week is in 2022, is May 29th to June the 4th. Our committee is planning to recognize the week by accessing social media and posting on the Town of Saugeen Shores website, promoting and educating the community on accessibility awareness. Some topics include Mobi maps, adult change table, mobility charging stations, etc. Mentioning adult change tables, the committee has advocated over the years for an adult change table in our community. With the partnership of the town, one has been installed at the Port Elgin Main Beach washroom. This change table can hold a maximum weight and allow adults to access the feature when visiting the beach. The committee will be placing a poster near the change table to allow feedback for future additions to the community. Mentioning mobility charging stations, the committee is proud to share this evening new mobility charging stations throughout the town. The 3 locations have been posted with newly developed signage by the committee. In Port Elgin, it's at the River Street washrooms, Coulter Parkette, and the McGrath Pavilion at the Port Elgin Main Beach. In Southampton, it's at the Southampton Town Hall, and the washrooms located at the Flag. These charging stations represent areas where scooters and wheelchairs are welcome to charge their vehicles. Facility trail and park audits. This year, the committee has provided town staff with suggestions when reviewing site plans for facilities, parks, playground equipment, and trail system within Saugeen Shores. Committee members will commence in-person facility audits when requested. We look forward to representing Inclusion for All when joining the subcommittee, if applicable, for the Lamont Sports Park and the new pool. Over the last few months, the committee provided input to the replacement and upgrades to many upgrades in our parks. Accessibility was considered in the playground design, and areas have been created to allow inclusive play for all. Understanding blindness symbols. Starting in the early 20th century, the original purpose of the white cane was to increase the user's visibility in traffic and to let drivers know they were blind. The cane was later deployed as a feeler used by people with vision loss to get around on their own. The use of the white cane is a travel tool. It became understood for that use, and the traffic safety feature is now less recognized. Any cane that is the majority of white, regardless of whether it is used as a feeler, indicates total or partial blindness. In the early 21st century, the wearable checkered eye symbol was developed to communicate partial blindness. And I will tell you that that was developed and created by one of our committee members, Libby Thaw, who's a Port Elgin resident. It's also intended for face-to-face situations rather than traffic safety. Both the white cane and the checkered eye symbolize and communicate the same piece of information. The user is somewhat on the blindness spectrum. Future budget considerations. Beach chair. We would like to ask council to consider future budget allocations for waterproof wheelchairs to allow water entry. It would also be seen fitting to eventually have one in each community. The main obstacle to those chairs is the sign out process and having a location for them to reside. Adult change table in Southampton. Once the feedback is received on the Port Elgin adult change table, we look forward to including an adult change table in Southampton, location to be determined. Speaking for Maureen, as the committee of the chair, she would like to end with thanking the committee members, council members, and town staff. Many thanks go out to Tracy Edwards, Deputy Clerk, for keeping our committee organized, informed, and keeping us on track throughout our meetings. Much appreciation to all. We look forward to seeing the town of Saugeen Shores barrier-free.
Okay, thank you, Minnie and Maureen. Unfortunately, Maureen, I haven't seen her come back in, but I would just, before I turn it over to members, just echo your thanks, Minnie, to the members of the committee, to Maureen and yourself, and Councillor Grace, and all the members of the committee for your work on the Accessibility Advisory Committee. It's an important committee, and as you've laid out so well, you're doing great work. So, questions or comments from members of the committee? Vice Deputy.
Just wanted to echo your words, Mr. Mayor, to all committee members, Minnie and Cheryl, and the chair and all committee members. Thanks so much for your great work. Minnie, I'm just wondering, really like romance, I think a great idea of being able to get into the water from an accessibility standpoint. We have one in town now, Minnie, that's operational during the summer months in Southampton, do we, or not?
No, we do not. King Carden does.
I thought the Rotary Club, I thought I'd purchased one, but I guess not. So nothing yet, right?
Not yet, no.
Okay, well, it's certainly something that I hope, and I know our Director of Community Service Operations on the call here tonight, and I certainly hope that's something that could be budgeted for in 2023. I'll certainly be supporting that. But thanks again for all your good work.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Further comments from members? We are rolling out the Moby Mat though this year, which is going to be a really great addition, I think, to the waterfront and help folks with various accessibility issues get into the water. And so it's going to be a great thing. And that was one that council supported this year, and it's very good. So if there's nothing further, then thank you very much, Minnie and Maureen. We'll go on next to our next delegation, which is from Kim Davidson and Greg Tatey from the Bicycle Committee, and they're here to talk to us about Bicycle Month and give us a committee update. So there's Greg. And do we have Kim?
Good evening.
Oh, there she is. Good evening. The floor is yours, guys.
Yep, I'll go ahead there. It's Greg Tatey. I'm a member of the Bike Friendly Committee, along with Kim Davidson. Show the follow up here. I'm just going to go briefly into some of our plans for Bike Month, and Kim's going to go into some wayfinding signage that we're looking into. So I'll start off with Bike to School Week, and that's going to be in conjunction with Parachute, which is a national charity dedicated to injury prevention, and it's promoting active transportation this year. So they're looking at providing resources to the schools on how they can plan different activities like anything but car day and an active school bus. So that's where kids can have a common meeting spot and either bike or walk to school together. Another activity for Bike Month is a kids' bike night at Ferry Lake. That's on June 14th. We're hoping to have Deputy Mayor Matheson come out and maybe decorate his bike up so he can join the kids for a loop around the Ferry Lake. This year we've come together with a scavenger hunt for the kids for Bike Month. So we're hoping to have 6 different places in Port and then 6 in Southampton that the kids will have to search out and find. Additional to that, in June there's going to be the start of the Bike to the Farmers Market ride. That's from Southampton to Port Elgin, and that's starting on June 15th. Bike ballet at the Marine Heritage Market Square. That's going to be starting the end of the month in July 1st. And for any of these activities, you can check the updated cycling webpage on the Saugeen Shores website. I'll pass it over to Kim.
You're still muted there, Kim.
Unmute. Did that work?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay. Thanks. Good evening, everybody. My name is Kim Davison. I'm on the Bike Community Committee with Greg. Thanks for having me this evening. Can we go to the next slide? One more. I think Greg covered that one as well. Okay, so I'm going to review the wayfinding signage with us this evening. So the committee that I'm on, the subcommittee that I'm on, has reviewed the wayfinding signage in Port Elgin and Southampton. And our goal is to improve the navigational experience and to direct cyclists to downtown cores and to the trails, Saugeen Rail Trail or to the beach, so on and so forth. So we've reviewed Port Elgin and Southampton, and we've come up with a recommendation of up to 18 signs that would assist cyclists in understanding wayfinding and how to arrive at these locations. Following this slide here, there's 2 slides with the map, and I'll briefly go through it with everybody. So we are reviewing opportunities for grants and for funding, and in future improvements, once these signs are completed, we'd like to add QR codes to the signs as well, and ideally color code them so that you can understand if you're on a loop, what color of loop you're on, and to continue with the signs. Here in front of you is a map of Port Elgin. And there's also a map of Southampton, but we've done key locations with this expanded map here where we believe it would help cyclists go to desirable locations such as the beach or up to the rail trail or over to the Lamont Sports Center or out to McGregor Park using the safe pathways that we have already established and the expanded trails we expect to see. The next slide is Southampton. There we go. And so there's a circuit of 7 signs that are being recommended in Southampton as well. And as well, we're recommending a stop sign consideration in Southampton where the rail trail meets Adelaide Street. But again, these signs are looking to guide people who are not familiar with the area, if you're on the rail trail, how to get to downtown Southampton or how to get to the core, to the beach or back out on the rail trail. So So in summary, there's 18 locations where we're recommending signs. We'll be searching for grant opportunities to implement those. And we wanted tonight to review those with everybody to understand and provide this update. We can take any questions if there are any.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? The Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yep, thanks for your great work, Greg and Kim and Don. I think Deputy Mayor, I think, is chairing the committee, I believe. Thanks for all your great work. The one of interest to me is that kid scavenger hunt. Being a grandparent, I just wondering, that sounds like a lot of fun. Could you provide a little bit information for members of the public to understand better, where they pick up the sheets, where they find these scavenger hunt items? I see it starts next week. So can you tell me a little bit more about that? It sounds interesting.
Actually, Mike, what they're going to be doing is actually I believe there's a summer student and he's putting together this year, and then all the details will be on the website, the cycling website for that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, very good. Are there further comments? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, as chair of the committee, I'd just like to thank all the members for the work that they've been doing. And just to remind council that what we're doing is putting a plan together so that we can make an application for the silver designation of a bike-friendly community. Now, as Greg was saying there, the scavenger hunt and the Vice Deputy Mayor Act, it'll be like the Southampton Marine Festival. There'll be certain places located around town, and once the kids find it, they'll fill out a card, and we'll have spots where they can put their entries in, and then there'll be a kind of little raffle draw for everybody at the end to win a prize.
Yeah, that's very good. The Vice Deputy Mayor, or then Councillor Jakes.
So just as a follow-up to the Deputy Mayor, when do you see this committee kind of winding things up? Is it another 1 month, 2 months, 3 months? How's it going? And I mean, it sounds tonight you have some good stuff being planned, but when does this committee come to the end, Don?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, in conjunction with the work that our staff person, Lisa Billings, has been doing, we're looking at winding things up in August once the bike-friendly month is done and we get all the information that we've gathered in. We've also got some applications in for some grants to help with the Wayfind signage. Now, if that doesn't come through, there might be a small ask of council come budget time to put these signs up, because in certain locations, it's very hard to find where you are. Like if you're going down the Shipley Trail, how do you get to McGregor Park? If you're not from here, it's an onerous task to be able to get there. So we want to make it, as Kim has said, as easy for people to find the downtown core, the main tourist attractions, and just be able to go online and find where they are. So we're hoping to wrap this up in August, and then we'll be putting in our application for the bike friendly in the early fall.
Good, thanks a lot, Don.
I'll get Councillor Jakes and then Councillor Matt.
There. And through you, Mr. Mayor, in the past, we've worked with Cycle Ontario, which is an overall group that is like an ambassador for events and things that are happening. I'm just wondering if the group has thought about maybe contacting them to have it put on their website, the events that they are doing. And you mentioned Wayfair signs. I noticed in Southampton, it has on the sidewalks, walk your wheels, but I don't see anything in Port Elgin that says that, or anything on the waterfront promenade. I'm all for cycling, as I've helped organize events in the past for Cycle Ontario. So I'm wondering if we could also look at maybe having walk your wheels on the waterfront promenade as well as downtown Port Elgin, if we're going to be sending people down to the downtown core, as it is part of our bylaw that we've got, bylaw 103 for traffic and control, just to make sure that we're keeping everybody safe.
If there's any member of the committee, Deputy Mayor, anybody else, any comments to that?
Mr. Mayor, through you, I believe we are in contact with Ontario Cycle. Lisa's on a couple of the committees with that, so we're in touch with them and a couple other groups. And our members are avid cyclists, so they also belong to other groups. So a lot of that is already part of our mandate. in our mandate. As far as the signs on the sidewalks, that's something we could bring up at our next meeting. But again, that'll be an ask that we have to do for the town, because the town will be responsible for painting and putting those on.
Okay, Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thanks to the committee for all the great work. I'm interested in, I have a question about this wayfinding signs as well. Do you have a estimate, like what's the grant application you're putting in for how much of these signs? I think you mentioned, Greg mentioned 18 signs that you've identified. And these can be, I know from experience, they can be very elaborate and very expensive, or they can be very simple and easy to go with. So what kind of range are you looking at?
For you, Mr. Mayor, we haven't got that in yet. It's going to come down to like the grant application. We just put in our design and our ask. So we're looking at those signs right now, and we'll be coming back to council later when we do have a total for what we want as a design and how we want to put them up. There's some question whether, you just put the QR signs in certain spots, because pretty much everybody does use a phone, but we want to have big signs that show the loops and show the town and how to get there. So that's in the works.
Yeah, it sounds like it's something that's going to come back to council. Hopefully it'll come back fully funded by an outside source, but one way or the other, we'll be seeing it and we'll have more information when it comes back. Are there further questions or comments to Deputy Mayor?
And just a note here, Mr. Mayor, there will be a full report coming from Lisa later on in the agenda tonight as well.
Very good. Well, if there's no further questions, thank you very much, Greg and Kim. We appreciate you coming in this evening, and pass along our thanks to all the other members of the committee. We appreciate your efforts to enhance our community as a cycling destination. It's great work, and we thank you for it. So have a good evening.
Thank you. Good evening.
So we'll move on now to our final delegation, and that's from Tony and Sylvia Sheard from the Southampton Rotary Club, and they're here to talk to us about Toonies for Tom fundraiser. And there they are. Tony and Sylvia, the floor is yours.
Great. If we could have our first slide up, that would be great, please.
We'll get on it here.
That's wonderful. So I'd just like to say good evening, Mayor Luke and town councillors, and thank you, Tracy, for adding us to this meeting at relatively short notice. And I'd also just like to comment that Southampton Rotary was proactive in actually funding Moby mats in Southampton about 3 years ago. So it's great they're going to come to Port Elgin too. And talking about bike friendly, our event will also be bike friendly. So I feel we're a good link with the past two speakers. Okay, if I could have the next slide, please. So Southampton Rotary Club is very excited to announce Toonies for Tom. It's a fundraiser for the CT scanner Bring Tom to Town campaign, which will be a fun and inclusive event. Most people are able to spare a toonie or two for this good cause, as it benefits everyone in our community, and it will specifically give children the opportunity to participate and realise that they too can help make a difference. Toonies for Tom will take place on June 12th from 11 a.m. till 3 p.m. in downtown Southampton. And the High Street will be closed from 9 a.m. till 4 p.m. from Highway 21 down to Grosvenor Street to allow us time to set up and take down. Next slide, please. Southampton Rotary is asking everyone to start collecting your toonies now, so we can collect enough that if we laid the coins in a line, they would stretch from the flag right up to the hospital. This is about 1 kilometre, and the distance, and so the amount of toonies we would need is 35,000. But we're sure Saugeen Shores will be up to this challenge. And if everyone who lived in Saugeen Shores donated just 2 toonies, we would be almost there. And now many businesses have actually got collecting tubs called Toonies for Tom. Oops, sorry, out of focus. So people can give their donations at the stores that have the toonie tubs. Next slide. So our inspiration for this event is the late Marnie Camage, an avid volunteer and strong advocate of our hospital for many years. When Marnie was just 11 years old, she laid double-sided tape down the high street and asked people to put down a dime to raise money for a hospital in Southampton after a child had drowned. 50 years later, she replicated the event. And now, another 25 years later, in memory of Marnie, Southampton Rotary is embracing the same activity. But as some of us are getting a little too old to do all the bending down, our friends at Southampton Arts are painting a whimsical image of the high street so we can virtually show Tom moving from the flag to the hospital as we reach our goal. Next slide. So we're asking our community to come out on Sunday, June the 12th, rain or shine, and have a fun day. There'll be a toonie toss for the children, and of course adults can join in too, and there's prizes for the kids. Maybe there'll be prizes for the adults. We are working on that. The event will kick off at 11 a.m. by campaign co-chair James Skonyak, who will introduce Marnie's daughter, Kate Camage Irwin, to ceremoniously toss the first toonie. And we'll also have musical entertainment, thanks to the support of Bruce Power. We're giving away free popcorn. There's the emergency vehicles touch a truck display and more. And if you're one of the first 150 people to bring 10 or more toonies or a donation of $20 or more, you'll receive a commemorative Toonies for Tom limited edition bag, which you probably, yeah, there you can sort of see it. Yeah. Oh, okay. And we'd also like to thank the town for providing a bike valet service at this event, which is really helpful. Next slide. So to involve young people, we have the Southampton Rotary School Challenge. Students at our school will be asked to collect toonies. Each school that participates will receive $50 for library books, and the school that collects the most will receive an additional $200 for books. In addition, Rotary is partnering with Southampton Arts to organise a children's colouring and student art competition, which has been sponsored by Brannan Wealth Management. So any entries must be delivered by hand to our art tent on High Street by 2 p.m. on June the 12th. The winners in each of the 5 categories will be announced at 3 p.m. and they will receive gift certificates for $50. Next slide. So, as well as supporting Toonies for Tom, we invite everyone to come downtown Southampton to eat, drink and shop at our local businesses in what will be a safe, traffic-free zone. And 2 of our restaurants who don't normally open are actually opening their doors for this event. We encourage everyone to bring their own refillable water bottles, as Remind Wellness has kindly offered to refill them when required. So if anyone needs any more information, you just purely go to our website, which is www.southamptonrotary.com. And we would like to thank the town staff who have helped us with Toonies for Tom, providing vehicles for our display, and all of you for listening to our presentation this evening. Next slide. Any questions?
That's great. Thank you, Sylvia and Tony. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? Councillor Grace.
Thanks, Tony and Sylvia, and thanks to the Rotary Club. Once again, you've come up with a very creative idea that encompasses not just health, assistance and support for the hospital, but promoting environmental awareness and encouraging people to shop and eat local. And it's a great idea. I can't wait to be there. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. Further questions or comments? Councillor Davinsky. Oh, you're muted there, John.
I'm still talking, even though you said that. I apologize.
No.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Tony and Sylvia, I'm just blown away with this presentation and the concept of this idea. It is going to be a blast. in downtown Southampton on June 12th. I will get my toonies together and I will be certainly there tossing them or doing whatever I have to do. And you're showing me something, tickets of some sort. And
Toonie rolls.
what are they?
Toonie rolls.
Rolls for your toonies. We'll drop them off to you.
So we'll drop a
Okay,
pack
that's
to the
cool,
council
that's cool.
chamber
Please do
along
that.
with some tubs too, if you like. We might just ask in this forum, is it possible to put one of these in the foyer of the council chambers, the council offices?
I'm quite certain that's doable, yes.
And
Thank you,
just
Mr. Mayor. We will do that tomorrow.
Sorry, Councillor Davinsky.
Sorry, John.
no
Sorry,
problem.
John. Thank you for the lead in though. Good.
Well, just like you asked me to say, so there you go.
Yes.
This
You
looks
said-
like a lot of fun for everybody, kids, adults, and what have you. And it's the one time I'm going to say to Port Elgin residents, come on down and have some fun with Toonies for Tom. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions or comments from members? Well, thanks very much to both of you and to Rotary. You guys, Rotary, you know, you mentioned that whether it's accessibility or bicycling or the hospital or parks or you name it, I really can't think of a single thing that is good about our community that Rotary doesn't have something to do with, and the two of you in particular. So thanks very much for your work on this. It's going to be an awesome event. People from all over Saugeen Shores and from beyond, I'm sure, will come, and everyone is invited, I know, and we can't wait for a great day on the 12th. So I'm sure we'll all be there, and we look forward to seeing you there. Thank you for
Thank you
your
so
time
much.
tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. Thank
Good
you.
evening.
Oh,
All right. Have a good evening. All right. So we are on now to reports of municipal officers and committees. Sorry, just give me a second. I gotta get my agenda working again here. Okay, so we're on to 7.2, staff report on the purchasing policy update. And we'll turn over to the treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Town staff have developed an updated and modernized purchasing and procurement policy for council's consideration. This policy has been in the works for a long period of time, and in recent months has undergone an extensive internal review process. The end result being a fully restructured and updated policy from the current policy, which was passed in 2012. This new policy will streamline how we do business to ensure that we are procuring goods and services in an efficient and cost-effective manner. It implements many best practices, and it ensures that the town is up to date with applicable legislation and legal standards. I'd like to thank Jenica Hendry, our accounting coordinator, who acted as the project lead on this and was instrumental in getting us to this point, for all of her efforts through the process. And I will now hand it over to Jenica for her to briefly recap some of the highlights and major changes to the policy.
Thank you, Dan, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Some of the key updates in this policy include the table on page 11 in section 8.0. It's methods of purchasing, and this has been added to improve the efficiency and provide more clarity around the thresholds and for purchasing requirements. This allows purchasers to quickly and easily identify the required purchasing method based on the project dollar value. This update also introduced new forms at the end of the document in Schedule C through G. These forms provide standardized documentation to ensure effective record keeping of our purchasing activities. For example, in Schedule E, there's an added contractor performance evaluation form, and this enables the town staff to manage vendor performance. Also, with this update, we're moving to completely electronic submissions for all formal calls for bids through the town's bids and tenders website. That covers the main updates for the purchasing policy.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? Vice Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you, and Danica, thanks for all your great work here. I know it was a lot of work, and Really appreciate your efforts. I had a couple questions. One was on page 12, and that was the up to 25,000 estimated total cost. And it says seek best pricing value through appropriate and formal process. Did that used to be $5,000 where no quotes were required, and then 5 to 25, I think 3 quotes, you know what? So what's the change? What's the change there? How many prices do you have to receive for up to 25,000?
Yeah, that's right. Sorry, Danica, you can take that.
Yes, that is correct. So in the table, so up to 25,000 is now, so it's allowed more flexibility as prices go up. We have provided more flexibility to staff to increase that threshold from 5,000 to 25,000.
Okay, I was thinking it was $5,000. So it gives you a little bit more room. Is that 3 quotes, or could you go out and find somebody, you know, a firm, one price basically, and award a contract? You know, how competitive, I guess, is the bidding?
So you can do it based on one price or one bid, and it is changing from the $5,000 threshold to the $25,000 threshold.
Yeah.
But in the previous policy, there were other ranges, 5 to 10,000 and 10 to 25,000 that also didn't require a full open tender or anything like that. So it's really moving from a situation where staff are needing to get 2 or 3 different bids if they're available to just that one bid, but it is still a low threshold that I think is in line with other municipalities of our size, with other public institutions of our size.
5,000 became, it was just a little bit outdated, obviously. The threshold was too low, right? Okay.
Correct.
Page 16, 8.5.2. The buying group must comply with the following cost restrictions up to 25,000. No restrictions. Just, pardon my ignorance here. What does that mean?
So that that's similar to the table in 8.0. There's not restrictions that they need to go out to tender in a specific period or anything. So generally the buying groups offer the lowest price available to the municipality, and with minimal effort of staff and using town resources. So, but once we hit the $25,000 mark up to 100,000, there must be the they must comply with the legislation and
gotcha.
Yeah, and have the sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, that section of the policy is really just aligning to the table that you just asked about, in that there's no formal requirements in section 8.0, and therefore in section 8.5.2 there's also no formal requirements at that level.
Well, again, Mr. Mayor, Danica, great job and a lot of work. This is a big document, and you've done a really good review, and I just wanted to thank you for all your great work on this report.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Smith.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to Danica and Daniel, thank you so much for this report. I have 2 questions this evening. The first is acknowledging that there are some limitations within the Municipal Act. Is there any room or opportunity to include something maybe in the lower thresholds that incentivizes local procurement with made in Saugeen Shores solutions, or any way to provide criteria by which those suppliers could be given preferential treatment? Does the Municipal Act allow for anything like that in the lower thresholds?
I can speak to that. Sure. So the courses through Ontario Public Buyers Association really try to discourage any kind of favoritism, even for local goods. It's really, they're trying to ensure that there is fairness and objective purchasing. There's not that kind of they want that impartial purchasing throughout the levels. So that's why it's not shown in this purchasing policy.
Okay, great. Thank you. Obviously, I disagree with that legislation, but that's okay. Secondly, I recall vaguely Nuclear Innovation Institute was working on some, I'll call it a categorical approach to procurement, or some strategic sourcing, whereby we could do some bulk Costco-like buying for perhaps equipment or even road salt, things like that, that we could take advantage of. Is there anything that we need to speak to in that regard in this policy, or maybe I'll just let you speak to whether that collaboration has already occurred or whether that's something forthcoming?
I'll give an update based on what I know is that has not progressed to the point where it's actionable at this time. If that is continued to be pursued, then we're certainly open to participating in that. And I don't think there's anything in this policy that would prohibit or discourage our involvement in that type of a project.
Excellent. Thank you. That's all for me.
Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Danica and Dan, for the report. Another question that just occurred to me, and I'm kind of going off of what Councillor Smith just raised in terms of local preferences. I mean, we do have local firms that can bid, right? It doesn't prohibit that from happening in order to try to prevent favoritism or nepotism or anything, right? Have you heard anything in through the Ontario Buyers Association or whatever group is governing this that that may start looking at the issue of green alternatives? I mean, I could see a compelling argument that might balance that local issue, saying, you know, if we can get products that are close to us, that helps the environment, and that you're not, you know, trucking something across the province or driving hours or whatever and using gas. And there are a lot of good arguments for that, besides just supporting your local businesses. Anything like that come up in discussions?
So I'll try to respond in terms of what the policy still allows for, which is it still allows specifically on RFPs on requests for proposals, individualized scoring when selecting or awarding a contract. So if there are local or environmental factors that present an advantage to the municipality in procuring that good or service, that would still be permitted, and that would be maybe one way that we could go about going forward. As Danica mentioned, I don't think it would be considered best practice to codify those things directly into the policy, particularly on the tender side with some of the bigger purchases and bigger costs and values for the municipality.
So it might be something, though, that you could add if it seemed appropriate to staff for
on a
that particular type
purchase.
of product.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Thank you.
All right, Councillor Davinsky.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, thank you to Danica and Dan for the work that's been done on this. Just a comment on the work. I think this new policy, as has been said, reflects the increased prices, so that 5,000 is just too low. But I'm sensing that this policy also could reduce the workload of some of our town staff. And if so, for instance, in the $25,000 range, they don't have to go after 3 quotes. Okay, that's fine. And I think that would lessen their load, which I'm all for. Following up with Jamie Smith and Cheryl Grace on the local, I'm still smarting from a truck we bought recently. And I agree wholeheartedly with what those two say. We've I know we can't do favoritism, but it doesn't mean we couldn't take, and correct me if I'm wrong, we couldn't take a quote that would be a little more expensive, but is still local. I'm just wondering, or do we have to? Do we have to take the lowest rate?
Perhaps I can speak to that. The intent is also, and keep in mind that the reason that this legislation was put forward across the country is to avoid, is to ensure that you're not creating an uncompetitive environment, as was already suggested. If municipalities started doing this, that would also mean that our local businesses would likely get shut out from competing in other markets as well. And that was the intent of the legislation. So it's not even the Ontario Buying Association. All they're doing is providing education on legislation that we all need to follow. But to Councillor Grace's point, the things that we can put in place in RFPs, such as environmental, that aren't speaking specifically to favoritism of local businesses, are certainly allowed, and we could be taking a look at that to ensure that we're doing things from an environmental standpoint that makes sense. And it may so happen that that does give an advantage to our local businesses, and those are things that we can take a look at.
Okay, Councilor Nowinski.
Okay, so then from what I understand from that, Jim, is that we won't give a local firm, I don't want to say preferential treatment, but if they come in a little higher than the lowest bid, are we married to the lowest bid every time something like this is put out for RFPs and so on?
Council always has the prerogative to overrule the lowest bid. However, keep in mind that council will be doing it at their own peril, in that the lowest bidder could potentially come after the town with a lawsuit for losses that they've incurred for not getting that business. And so in many cases, it would be ill-advised to do that for purely that reason. Council would be better suited to do that if there are other factors at play that would perhaps say that a certain business that was the lowest bidder was not qualified and was overruling it for that reason. But simply to say we're going to give it to a local business, you're most likely to face a lawsuit, and then the town would have to pay for that dearly.
Point taken. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Are there further questions or comments? Am I to take it then, Jim, if there's or to Daniel or Danica, is there's a legislative prohibition on the municipality preferring a local supplier if all else is equal?
Correct.
Really?
Well, I mean, if the bid came in exactly equal, then there's a process. And Danica, can you just remind me of how that's selected? It's more of a random process rather than selecting a local.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, for an equal bid, there would be either negotiation to determine then who would come in lower, or it would be dependent on delivery dates and or other sort of factors that would then determine what would be most appropriate for the town and most beneficial.
I think it's I mean, and so we have to follow the law, and the law is the law, and we do have to have policies that match the law, though I think it's quite clear based on what you're hearing from council that we would prefer to buy from local vendors.
Of course.
So so you have your policy, and I suspect we're going to pass it. It's a great policy, and it's good work, and I appreciate all the work. I think the work that it's smart to increase that minimum threshold just because of inflation, and what a dollar buys now is not the same as what a dollar bought the years ago when that previous threshold was set. But as you implement this policy, just remember that our interest is is the town of Saugeen Shores and the businesses in the town of Saugeen Shores, and we want to see them succeed, and we want to spend as much of the municipality's money in Saugeen Shores as we can. And so I know that we'll find ways to make sure that our tendering and bid processes are open to our local businesses, and that they will be treated fairly, and that and we will make sure that however we can, we're going to buy local. It's certainly something we talk a lot about, and we should certainly practice what we preach as much as we can. So anyway, thank you very much for the policy. If there's no further questions or comments, I'll read the recommendation. It's recommended that council pass a bylaw to adopt the purchasing and procurement policy. If there's nothing further, then we'll ask all in favor. That's carried. All right, thank you guys very much. All right, now we're on to the second report, infrastructure and development, and it's a staff report on an easement agreement for the riverbank stabilization. And we have the acting director of infrastructure development for this one. There he is.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Yeah, staff has worked. It's been a long process doing this through the EA process, and it's not a huge job, but it's definitely an intricate job. And to be able to be part of accessing where we have to do the bank stabilization, but the only access is through the Stoner property. So staff did work with them, legal advice on getting an agreement, and I think it's a very good agreement. Works well, and with this, then we can start in probably June to get this project underway.
Okay, so there's a recommendation that the town enter into an easement agreement with Norm and Judy Stoner to facilitate the River Road bank stabilization works, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary documents. Are there questions or comments from members of the committee? Seeing none, then all in favor. That is carried. Thank you very much. Excuse me, now we're on to the second report, which is a staff report on the 2022 Beach Ambassador Program. And well, who has this report? Sorry. Colin has it too. There he is. He went away and then he came back. I wasn't sure if you were doing this one too. All right, the director.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, staff is looking at bringing this program back. It was a successful program last year. We'd like to bring it back for a bit of bylaw enforcement as well. The funding it through the COVID-19 funding from the province is the plan to do this. We go through on until September 11th is our hope. Then we would be able to review at that time and then report to council and determine whether that's going to be going annually, whether we can do it next year or just what the plan will be.
Okay, well, there's a recommendation that council approve the allocation of $12,500 from the COVID-19 reserve for the 2022 Beach Ambassador Program. Are there questions or comments from members? Councilor Grace and then Councilor Smith.
Thank you, Colin, for the report. I'm really glad that this program is being brought back. Obviously, we don't have enough staff for them to be everywhere all the time, or even every day. But what would be the town's advice to residents who do see something during off hours when we don't have staff at a site where they perhaps see a bylaw violation that they're concerned about?
There's a phone number for the town office, of course, and there's a phone number for the bylaw enforcement officer. If it's a serious, more bigger infraction, of course, we have our police. The town police can take advantage of that or work on to that one. Just standard now, if any resident sees a bylaw infraction that they're concerned about, neighbor problem, it's be calling the town office, calling the municipal office and going from there.
And for off hours, the police?
Yeah, that would be, if like I say, if the infraction they feel it's important and should be looked at right then, absolutely. The police will be the best one. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Councilor Smith.
Thank you, and through you to Colin. Later this evening, we're going to hear a report on a staffing shortage, and I wondered if you could articulate whether there's any risk if we're appealing to a student population for these roles. Previously, this council had expressed some concerns with younger individuals enforcing some of these bylaws, and I just wondered if you could help articulate for both us and the public who the target market for these roles will be.
Yeah, these through you, Your Worship. These roles, we're looking at the retired bylaw enforcement officer coming on a part-time basis. And then we, as we know through council, that we do have a new bylaw enforcement officer. When they cannot fill those roles, we still have the auxiliary police. So there won't be, this isn't something where we would have untrained students. This is a role where you have to have some training. You have to have an understanding of working with public and dealing with the actual bylaws and legislation. So the report that'll be coming further on is more to do with our parks and recreation, lack of staff, lack of being able to get students to fill these roles is what Kristen Schreider, Director Schreider, is going to be dealing with a little later.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up. I recall last year, a portion of this role of the ambassadors was for what I'll call positive reinforcement. And we've seen this recently with the Saugeen Shores Police as well, where they're sort of reverse ticketing strategy, where they're giving out gift certificates for good behavior. If I recall correctly, I think the ambassador program offered some semblance of that philosophy last year. Is there an opportunity to continue with that positive reinforcement in any way with this program?
I think it's a mixture of both on this. We looked at it last year and we've looked, that will still be a part of it. Everything based on bylaw enforcement is a positive step first, absolutely. But did look at also, there should be some enforcement as well, some ticketing as necessary. I think the primary thing is just to have a presence and a positive presence on site.
Okay, Councilor Maya.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And it's great to hear that this program is coming back to town. With regards to deploying police or special constables, certainly the police are quite busy at this time of year with all the tourists coming to town, and it's expected that this will be a busy summer, hopefully in good ways as well. I thought when I was reading this and when it pertains to the deployment of police and police special constables, this is a good place for me to put a plug in for the current police 3-year budget planning process, 3-year business planning process, which the public can participate in through filling out the online survey, which can be found at the Saugeen Shores Police Services Board. And in there, they will be able to speak to programs such as this one, and should they be identified through the survey and through the consultation process as being high priority for the citizens of Saugeen Shores, then the police board will take that information into consideration and consider streamlining resources and targeting resources towards these types of foot patrols and ambassador programs. So if you're listening, take the time to fill out the survey and tell us what you think. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Jakes.
Whoops. Question through you, Mayor, regarding the public and educating them as to what our bylaws are in the summer. We do have some signage. Is there anything about handing out any information or letting our visitors know who may not be aware what are the rules on the beach in the summer?
Through you, Your Worship. The new bylaw enforcement officer that we've hired on is very strong with that, very strong with education, bringing out ideas for education. I was very, very impressed with the ideas she had. So she will be taking direction on that, or giving direction on that, and working that way. So it's more of an education, less of an enforcement. The more education there is, more understanding the public has of our bylaws and why we have the bylaws is far better than handing out tickets.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, further questions or comments from members? I don't see any. Well, it is great to see this program continuing. I think it served us very well during the first 2 years of the pandemic, and I think it's going to be very important to continue to have a presence, an active presence on the beaches. of course, during the summertime, people around this table hear lots about what goes on the beaches and lots of concerns from people. So I know the public and council will very much appreciate having resources there to respond to those issues and to, as you say, help to educate people about what our bylaws are. Many people, most people just don't know. And so if they end up in the wrong side of a bylaw, it's just through ignorance of the bylaws. So I think we can help people and make it a good beach experience for everyone this year, which is what everybody wants. So thanks for your work on this. And with that, you've heard the recommendation. So we'll ask all in favor. That is carried. All right. Now we are on to community services and parks and recreation reports. And excuse me. And the first one is a staff report on the Aquatic and Wellness Center Prime Consultant Award and the director.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good evening, everybody. It's an exciting time to be in the recreation industry in Saugeen Shores. I'm very proud tonight to be delivering this report to advance the new Aquatic and Wellness Center project in Saugeen Shores. The RFP for the Prime Consultant closed on April 26th, and we received 8 submissions. The proposals were evaluated, and the top 3 scoring firms were interviewed by the evaluation team. Part of the interview process included a presentation from each firm outlining their approach to the project, resources dedicated to the project, public consultation methodology, and contract management and administrative requirements. The responsibilities of the Prime Consultant include, but not limited to, architectural, structural, civil, acoustics, landscape, electrical, and mechanical design. They lead the public consultation and community engagement process. They assist with the construction management pre-qualification, project cost estimates, develop tender documents and specifications, and project administration and inspections. The recommendation is to award the Prime Consultant contract for the new Aquatic and Wellness Center to Salter Pilon Architecture and in association with Let's Architects. The following is an outline of the tentative project schedule. The pre-design will occur in May and June. The construction management pre-qualification in July. The conceptual design from June to September. Community consultation and project cost analysis will occur from August to September. Approvals and permitting starting in September of this year, carrying on through February 2023. Final design and specifications are estimated to be complete between September and March 2023. Issue bid packages and award in February of 2023, and construction to commence in May 2023 and complete January 2025. Included in the project outline and tentative schedule is the project management method, construction management, or referred to as CM. This approach to project management differs from the traditional design, bid, build method. In the design, bid, build method, the owner or the town establishes a contract with the architect. They develop the design and specification documents, and then the town issues a tender for document for the general contractor to construct. The preferred approach to the Aquatic and Wellness Center project is the construction management method. The construction management method will provide the town support and experience early on in the planning and design phase of the project. They will work with the town and the Prime Consultant to determine the best sequencing, effective schedule, and responsible budget throughout the duration of the project. The selected construction management firm will represent the town's best interest and provides input and oversight of the project from the early on stages to project completion. Benefits of the construction management method for the Aquatic and Wellness Center include a team approach with collaboration from both the design and the construction elements. The design takes into consideration the construction requirements of the build. If possible, we will take advantage of a reduced construction period and possibly reducing construction costs. The town's interests are protected by the construction management firm throughout the project and accurate cost analysis throughout the planning phases of the project. Negotiations are continuing to establish an operating agreement between the town and the YMCA for the new Aquatic and Wellness Center. Staff anticipate bringing forward a report, updated business plan, and draft agreement to council in June. Advancing the award of the prime consultant, as described in this report, does not impact the negotiations between the YMCA, nor does the negotiations or not having a final operating agreement in place impact the award of the prime consultant and the project advancing. I want to thank our evaluation team, Lisa Billing, who is our recreation manager, and Steve Hardy, who is our project lead. Steve is on the call tonight and will support me to navigate any questions that you may have. Steve has been the town lead in the negotiations with the YMCA and will also be the project lead for the planning, design, and construction of the new Aquatic and Wellness Center. And we're happy to take any questions that you have.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have a recommendation, and I'll read it. It's recommended that council approve Salter Pilon Architecture Incorporated in association with Let Architects as the vendor for the Aquatic and Wellness Center prime consultant contract in the amount of $1,366,875 plus applicable HST, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary documents. Questions or comments from the committee? Councilor Mayette, and then the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Director Schreider, for your presentation, and to Steve, who's on the call. This is very exciting news. It's so great to see some dates attached to this, what was once a pie in the sky project, and I'm sure the whole community is shouting in the background cheers towards this. I'm not familiar with a lot of architecture companies, but I'm certainly not familiar with Salter Pilon in association with Let Architects, but presumably they pre-qualified and that they've got some experience building aquatic and wellness centers. Is that in fact the case? And can you give us maybe an example of what they might done near or far? Thank you.
Absolutely. And through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you for the question and the support for the project itself. Part of the evaluation was the past experience related projects and reference checks as well. I can go through the proposal and forward some comparable projects for council to look at online if you like after the meeting, but definitely references and similar projects experience was part of that evaluation process. And Steve is online. I don't want to put him on the spot, but if he does recall perhaps one or two projects off the top of his head, then we can talk about that. And if not, I can forward those on tomorrow for you.
Sure, through you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of the projects that Salter Pilon and Let were involved in are the recently constructed Bradford West Willenbury Recreation Center, which was quite similar to what we're building here. They were also the prime consultant for a recreation center similar in Canada and another one in Kirkland Lake. And in the reference checks, I still remember the one line that one of the gentlemen indicated. I asked on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you rate the Salter Pilon and Let? And he said, well, 10's impossible, so I'll give them a 9. So I was quite impressed by that.
Hey, the Vice Deputy Mayor then.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, Kristen and Strides and Steve. Councilor Matt did ask the question. I was really talking about the qualifications of this company, and I just wondering, Steve and Strides, if we in fact move forward with the Family Y, you said it will have no impact on construction. Now, Family Ys typically have, I think, their own architects and their own design features, and like they operate a Y the way they like to operate it, and with their own designs. So if in fact we made that decision to go with the Family Y, so what you're saying is this would have no impact, and with the Family Y, be happy with this firm. They're familiar with them. I guess that's my question. My first question. I have a follow-up too.
Perfect. And thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just clarify is that advancing the award of the prime consultant, we didn't have to necessarily wait on the decision into entering into an operating agreement with the YMCA, that we would be awarding the prime consultant contract regardless if it was a town ran facility or a YMCA facility. And I will also point out that if we do go with the YMCA, is that they have staff that will be part of our consulting team that will work alongside with Steve as the project lead, the prime consultant as well. So they will have a seat at that table. They have a lot of value to bring and include in the process of the design specifications.
Appreciate that's a good response.
Yep.
Thank you. And just my comment, Mr. Mayor, we're looking at December 2024. And that's what I think you as the mayor have been talking about along the journey here is let's get this thing up and running in late 2024, early 2025. So to members of the community, it's happening. We're moving forward, and it's a good thing for our aquatics community. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you. Kristen, I'm just not sure if you could clarify for me, please. Has the final design been agreed upon, or is this something that the consultants are going to hold community consultations and see what it is that exactly we want?
Yes, thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Community consultation was a large part of our evaluation process as well, and through the interview that we had with the top 3 firms, and through their presentation is we really wanted to hear what their ideas are on community engagement. Salter Pilon and Let Architects, they understand Saugeen Shores, they understand our population in the summer months as well, and that's why they have suggested we want to work with them in the community consultation occurring in August and also carrying on to September if required. So it's it's a big part of this process. So the final design and all of the amenities that are included in the aquatic facility are not determined yet. They will help facilitate that process.
Okay, thank you. Because what we're looking at, when we look at the original Plex design, it was 5 years too early for everything that was needed. Designs changed in that time. We have to build for what we're going to be looking at in 10 years. And I know that could be a little higher because it'd be a little more expensive, but we have needs here now. We're using facilities that are substandard. We have a growing recreational population from youth to seniors, and we have to be able to meet those needs. So I'm glad that there's going to be community consultation that we'll be able to look at, whether it's 2, 3, maybe even 4 courts. I'd be happy with 3 courts, that opens up to a full-size international basketball court that could be used for indoor soccer, whatever, the full 200-meter running track to go with our aquatic facility. But I'm glad there'll be community consultation on that, and I look forward to be partaking in those discussions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Further comments from members? I don't see any. I am a little concerned, Kristen, because this timeline now says January 2025, and I have to do a cannonball in that pool for Christmas 2024. So I'm nervous. I'm a little nervous now because I see January 2025. And so can you reassure me? Are we going to get the cannonball in? I know Steve wants to do one too.
It'll be that's right. It'll be a competition between you and Steve who gets to do the first one, or perhaps you do them in tandem, but we'll make sure there's water in the tank for that for sure.
All right, good. All right. Well, I'm going to hold you to it. All right. Well, that's good. No, it's a great report. And thanks very much. It is a major milestone. We're going to get this thing underway. We'll have it designed this year, work on, as the Deputy Mayor pointed out, that community consultation, which is really critical to really finally dot the I's and cross the T's on what's going to be in this facility. So I think the public can look forward to hearing more from the municipality in the coming months about just what that community consultation is going to look like and how they can participate. And we're certainly going to be eager to hear from everybody as we make our way through that. So, so on the subject of a pool, an exciting year to come. All right, so you've heard the recommendation. If there's no further questions or comments, then all in favor. And that's carried. All right. So we are now on to the second report, which is a staff report on the Lamont Sports Park Phase 2 Prime Consultant Award, and the director.
Perfect, and thank you. And we'll keep Steve Hardy on the line here as well, as he is the project lead for Lamont Sports Park. So just another exciting report to deliver tonight. Phase 1 is substantially complete, and play on the first 4 diamonds at Lamont Sports Park is to commence next spring. Staff are very pleased with the quality of the design and the construction of Phase 1. Landscape Planning Limited was awarded the contract for Phase 1 Prime Consultant following an RFP process in 2021. Landscape Planning provided a fee for the Phase 2 Prime Consultant services, and staff are satisfied with the cost, approach, work plan, and timeline included in their proposal. With their prior work at Lamont Sports Park, Landscape Planning Limited are a natural fit for the Phase 2 consultant responsibilities. Excuse me. In consultation with corporate services, the single source award to landscape planning is valid due to the extension of their existing contract, which would prove more cost effective and beneficial to the town. The conceptual design will incorporate amenities that are included in phase 2, which include 2 diamonds, signage, earthworks, and landscaping. And it also incorporates amenities that are not included in phase 2 scope, which are the pavilion, field house, septic tank, batting cages, and storage facility. It is critical that the allocation for these elements to be taken into consideration when designing phase 2 to ensure all facility components fit within the full park build out. The following is an outline of the tentative project schedule. Survey to occur in June, conceptual design back to council in July, design and cost estimate in September, the general contractor pre-qualification to occur in October, issue construction tender in November, and the construction to occur from March to December 2023. The playground installation will be in the spring of 2024, and play commencing on the 2 diamonds in phase 2 is in May 2025. The accessible playground, which we were awarded Kraft Heinz Project Play $250,000 for, was projected to be installed in the fall of 22. However, with phase 2 of the Lamont Sports Park advancing earlier than predicted, it's recommended that the installation be complete after the construction of the 2 new diamonds in phase 2. In summary, staff are pleased with phase 1, and we are encouraged by the fundraising efforts of the committee, and we are looking forward to advancing the second phase of the Lamont Sports Park.
Okay, thank you. There's a recommendation, and I'll read it. It's recommended that council approve $191,308.80 from the Legacy Fund Reserve to advance the design and related work for phase 2 of the Lamont Sports Park, and that council direct staff to retain Landscape Planning Limited for the prime consultant of the phase 2 of the Lamont Sports Park. Questions or comments? The Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, as chairman of the past Recreation Active Transportation Committee that moved forward with the Lamont Sports Park complex design, I just want to say that we thought that this would be one of the best facilities around. And by looking at it, I think this will be the premier ball facility in Southwestern Ontario. It's fantastic. If you haven't had a chance to see it, and I'm not going to steal any thunder from the Vice Deputy Mayor because he's probably going to talk about June 4th. Kristen and staff, Steve, you were part of that as well. I want to say thank you. I rolled by it on the weekend. I look forward to seeing all of phase 2 being implemented and the grand opening coming up and playing ball next year. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Davinsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you to Director Schreider. We talked about the accessible playground, and I asked you this earlier, Kristen. The delay on that doesn't affect our donation from Kraft Heinz?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor, no, it does not.
And I have another question. You mentioned in construction of phase 1 minor deficiencies that were there. Could you give me an example of those? And are we making plans to make sure those don't happen in phase 2 if we can prevent?
Sure, absolutely. And thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor, and Steve, please feel free to step in if I talk out of turn here. But generally through any construction project or project of this magnitude is that there will be deficiencies. So because we completed construction in the fall and late winter of last year, is that with some ground settling. So for example, around some of the light standards, the ground has settled a little bit, and where we have some deficiency earthworks and landscaping repairs to be made. We would have discovered those this spring after the snow had left. So the general contractor will come back and work with Steve and the prime consultant to address any of those type of deficiencies at no additional cost to the town.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I'll just say a comment. People are going to be blown away by what they see. The few people that I have taken there say, whoa, I didn't know it was going to be like that. And they are really impressed. And I won't take any more away from the Vice Deputy Mayor, who will probably talk about this, but get ready.
Yeah, thank you for those comments as well. And if I could add to that, the amount of times that I've been out there, it takes my breath away every time I go out there. And I think that will happen to a lot of residents, no matter how many times you go out there. It's something to be very, very proud of. So.
Councillor Jakes.
Quick question through you, Mayor. You mentioned the accessible park playground. Just wondering, the closest diamond to that playground, does it have extra seating for those that would be disabled and need accessible seating?
Sorry, Councillor Jace, could you just repeat that question?
Sure. You mentioned there's an accessible playground, which is part of the concept. Would the closest ball diamond to that accessible playground, would it have more accessible seating than most, based on the fact that it is next to an accessible playground and we have a growing population of seniors that may need that type of seating?
Great, thank you for the clarification and the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So the overall design of the location of the accessible playground, the field house, the washrooms, the pavilion, that is what is included in this design work coming up for phase 2. So what we will be looking at is lots of seating, accessible seating, benches, tables as well, in and around that vicinity of the pavilion and the playground. So we'll make sure that that's adhered to as well. We will be taking the design through the accessibility committee for comments as well. The other thing that I would like to mention is that there is a newly formed group in the community. Grey Bruce Play is their name. A couple of community members, and they've arranged it's a community group for parents with children with disabilities and looking at their play experience. So what we've done is we've reached out to them, and we're going to make that committee, 1 or 2 members of that committee, part of our internal team when we're looking at the development of the RFP for the playground and also perhaps the evaluation. We just want to make sure that we capture what that experience and the intent of the play experience is for all of the individuals out there.
Great, you answered my follow-up question. Thank you.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, further questions or comments? Well, Mike, I didn't think you'd have anything to say. I'm surprised. Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and Councillor Davinsky mentioned it, and our Deputy Mayor. But yeah, Saturday, June 4th, I'll just take the opportunity now to mention that, and I want to speak to the recommendation too. But Saturday, June 4th is an exciting day, and that's when the gates will be open for the first time, and take a sneak peek at the first 4 diamonds. An amazing facility, as Councillor Davinsky mentioned. Every time we take somebody in there, they're just literally blown away. So June 4th, come on out. It's 12 to 4. There's free lunch and kids activities, and there's 18 pipers coming in from kindergarten. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful day. Some musicians, but anyways, and bring your checkbook, because that's the launch of our public campaign that day, and the campaign is going extremely well. I did have a couple of questions, one question and a comment about the recommendation through you, Mr. Mayor, to our Director of Community Service Operations. It's on page 2, and that's about the we talk about the pavilion, field house, septic tank, batting cages, and storage. I'm really pleased to see, Shrides, that's part of the, Steve, that's part of the design for phase 2. That's exciting, and it's going to be more like the fundraising campaigns going well. There's going to be 2 new youth minor baseball fields out there as part of phase 2 in 2023. So that is really exciting. With several hundred people going through that park starting in May of 2023, there's going to be a need for washrooms. And I hope that the next council, as soon as this December, January, is going to be looking at washrooms, hopefully in 2023, or hopefully 2024 at the latest, preferably 2023, but it all takes money. But that field house, Shrides, are you referring to the washroom canteen with the field house? Is that what that is?
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah, I wondered that. So and it's good to see the pavilion and seating area for tournaments, major events, and so it's an excellent report. I'll be supporting this recommendation. I think that having the ability to bring in that contractor, that was a part of phase 1, I just think makes perfectly good sense for phase 2. And I know it is single source, but it's an extension. And Trice, could you just talk about that a little bit? you say that the landscape planning limited is valid. The single source is valid due to the extension of their existing contract. Is there wording in there? Is there?
Yes, and through you, thank you for the question. Through you, Mr. Mayor. So it's an extension of their contract for phase one. Through the RFP process that was issued for phase one in 2021, we also asked them to provide prices for subsequent phase if we were ready to do phase two as well. So we feel after receiving the proposal from them is we feel that was in line, that it's fair prices. We're very happy with their work plan and their time and their schedule in order to award that contract to them.
So, but regardless, there still will be a tendering process for the bigger dollar amount, which is about 2.25 million. There will be a tendering process when the time is this fall and the next council, correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, just to speak to the recommendation, Mr. Mayor, quickly, the 191,000. Could you just, I think phase one was around $95,000, give or take. I might be $5,000 there, but it just seems to have doubled for phase two. And I just wondering, I know costs have gone up obviously, but to double, I'm just wondering why the 191 versus the 95 for phase one, which is a $5.5 million project?
So thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So the contract award for phase one for the consultant was roughly $225,000. And that represented about 4% of the overall construction value of the project. This fee that we're receiving here is a little bit higher. It's about 8% of the projected $2.25 million estimated budget for the construction. There's two elements that we've added in phase two. So the survey, which will happen in June, I believe we outlined, that's really going to focus on the amount of fill that is required for the location of the phase two. We ran short on phase one. We want to make sure that we include that accurate amount in our tender phase. The other thing is that we've included the design work for the washroom concession and pavilion, the architectural, structural, mechanical, and engineer, just the design part of it. It doesn't mean that we have to tender it, but we want to advance the design of it so that we ensure that we're ready to advance those components of the project, but also that we have to plan accordingly for the space and the allocation of space within that parkland in this phase.
And Trace, thanks for clarifying that. I had that number wrong. So what you're saying is that 191, it was 220?
225. 100. Yeah. So when we, sorry, maybe just to follow up with that, is that, so if I remove those two elements, the survey and the extra design work with the field house and the pavilion and the washroom, is that it comes in around just over 5% of an increase, which I think is fair market value for the times that we're going through right now.
Which is fair. And just one follow-up, Mr. Mayor. Sorry, the pavilion part, I'm glad to see that there is a picnic shelter pavilion as part of the design feature. Is there a possibility that that feature could be broken out and separated for pricing, so that it's not going to be attached perhaps to the washroom canteen, but can it be separated?
Thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor, just to clarify that you want a separate pricing, a cost estimate for the pavilion. Is that what you're asking? Yeah. The reason being, and I'll explain it.
But through our fundraising initiatives, that $1 million we're trying to raise, there has been a lot of interest from our community, lumber supplies and concrete and electricians saying, you know what, we need a picnic shelter pavilion. Let us build it. And we even get some home builders saying, well, maybe we're interested in building it. So I just think if we could take that $500,000 cost, which is a rough cost for a 36 by 72 pavilion, again, preliminary. But if we did happen to build a pavilion out there in the next year or two, and we found local suppliers want to build it, you reduce that cost down from 500 to 150, whatever the amount is. I'm just wondering, could it be broken out separately?
Yes, thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, we'll talk to the prime consultant about that when they return cost estimates. We assume that there'll be a fairly good breakdown with regards to the different components of the park. So we'll try and get them to pull out that pavilion cost on probably all of the facility costs.
Great. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. A great report. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would think any element that council hasn't already identified as something that would move forward as part of phase 2, I think ought to be individually priced so that council can sort of pick a la carte from that list whenever it wants to try to advance it either now or in the future. So I think that's a good approach.
Thank you.
Are there further questions or comments? I don't see any. So thanks very much for this report. It's going to be great to see us advance through this year and see this project under construction as well in 2023. There's going to be a lot of recreation construction happening in 2023. Steve's going to be a busy guy next year, so I hope he's resting up this year. All right, so you've heard the recommendation and all in favor. That is carried. All right. So we are now on to 7.7. And communications and petitions for information, 7 items there. Anybody wish to speak to any of those items? Councillor Grace.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to speak to the police board minutes from April 20th. I was really impressed with the breadth of personnel training that was outlined by the chief in the minutes. Our officers have been taking part in drug stigma awareness, overdose deaths. They've been taking part in these kinds of training sessions, I should say. Labor issues related to policing, field sobriety training, cultural awareness, and more. It's also great news to read that our police services is the recipient of a number of grants. And of course, to receive grants, you have to apply and you have to have a vision and you have to be efficient in making those successful grant applications. And finally, I want to recognize the Benevolence Fund. This is something that was actually established in partnership with the Southampton Rotary Club and grew out of the work of the Attainable Housing Task Force. The fund provides police with money and supplies to support community members in need of emergency lodging, food, and clothing, as well as backpacks with essential items for those in need. John Van Basteler, who has been instrumental in organizing this fund, has also reached out to local church groups to assist with the financial support of the fund. I just read today on Instagram that the Port Elgin United Church youth group had a fundraiser this weekend and that they're donating part of the funds that they raised to support the Benevolence Fund. So what these minutes show once again is how lucky we are to have a strong and progressive police force. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Jakes.
And through you, Mr. Mayor, looking at the report from the Saugeen Mobility and Regional Transit, I just wanted to point out to the public in response to feedback from their community. SMART has extended the hours on Friday and Saturday evenings for their service Monday to Thursday, 6:30 to 6 p.m., but Friday from 6 a.m. to midnight and Saturday from 7 p.m. to midnight, which is in response to what the public's been asking for. And I just appreciate that they actually have taken the time to actually listen and expand their services so that people can actually be using it on the weekend as well. Thank you.
Very good. Further questions or comments? Well, not so much questions, but comments on these items? Don't see any. So we'll move on then to item 9, reports of department heads. And we have one report on here this evening, an information report on Bike Month and Bicycle Friendly Community Ad Hoc Committee update. And we'll turn it over to Lisa Billy.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. I am here tonight just with an information report following up on the with the delegation from our committee members this evening around the work that we're advancing for Bike Month, which is happening this June, and just generally some of the work of the bicycle friendly community. I welcome kind of any questions or feedback that you have related to the report.
Okay, thank you. Are there questions or comments from members? I don't see any. Thank you very much for the report, Lisa. And as we said at the beginning, to the members of the committee, thank you to them for the work they're doing, and lots of events planned for Bike Month next month. And I think that's going to be a great event in our community. So we're looking forward to that. And thank you for your work on it.
Thank you.
All right. So that brings us to the end of Committee of the Whole, and we'll have statements by members and the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, just a reminder, it's already been mentioned twice, but June is Bike Month. If you can, get out on your bikes, bike to work. Health community is an active community and vice versa. So as was stated before, we'll be having a kids' night at Ferry Lake, and it should be fun. So if any counselors are able to get down there with their bicycles, it would be greatly appreciated. I don't want to be the only one. Thank you.
Okay, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I just wanted to know if Strides is still on the call, and I don't think Frank Burrows is, but Strides, please pass on my thanks. Yeah, I had my two Peyton and Kobe, my two grandchildren, out on the weekend, and toured around to those 4 brand new parks, and Waterloo behind Pizza Delight, Nodwell Park, J.H. Robertson Soccer Complex Playground, and the Devonshire and Bruce Street Playground. Just incredible experience. It was tough to pull them off those 4 sites. They're just and the 4. It was really nice to see kids being active in our community and just playing our little hearts out, and the play experiences on those 4 playgrounds. I really enjoyed the slides and the climbing apparatus myself. It was a lot of fun, and getting on the swings. But the 2 grandkids, they were just thrilled. And so the variety that you see in the community, I encourage community members to get your kids out to these playgrounds around town and be active this spring, summer, fall, and recreation is good for the mind and the body. And please get out and be active and stay active. So pass on my thanks to Frank. I think it was Frank that probably pulled all the soft rides. Incredible playgrounds. So
yeah,
thank
you for that, and I'll be sure to pass along. Steve Hardy is still on the call as well, and he was very responsible for implementing those parks as well. So thank you. Yes.
Great.
Good. Councillor Jakes.
I'm sure somebody else is going to mention it, but I know what I'm going to be doing this Saturday, going to the Saugeen Shores Firefighters Breakfast. I won't have to make breakfast, so I'll be there. It starts at 8 and I think it goes to 11. So yeah, see you there.
You bet. Councillor Smith.
Thank you. And just a reminder of the upcoming Ontario provincial election on June 2nd. Advanced polls are open at the Saugeen Shores Community Complex. So upstairs, I believe, from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. Until this Friday. So encourage everyone to exercise their democratic right to vote.
Thank you, Councillor Davinsky.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple of things. June 4th, we've already talked about Lamont Park and the open house. From noon until 4. We're expecting a lot, well, we hope a lot of people come out and have fun, take a look around. There'll be games and prizes to be won, and we'll see what happens. But prior to that, I would also like to recognize the Rotary Huron Shore Run, which takes place in the morning, and they're raising funds for the hospital as well. And that takes place in Southampton, starting gate around the Walker House there, and then they head down Huron Avenue and until they've done half the journey, and then turn around and come back. Half the journey to me is just getting to Huron. And the tip of the hat, I don't know if anybody else has seen it. On Facebook just tonight. And I want to say hello to Jamie. Jamie obviously wants no PR whatsoever about this, but Jamie, not our Jamie, but another Jamie, turned in a wallet to the police. That wallet had $5,000 in it. and he turned it over to police, and police were able to find the rightful owner. And that's got to be a win-win-win all the way down the pike. So thanks to Jamie, the police, and the owner getting the money back. Tip of the hat.
Thanks very much. Councillor Grace.
I have nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillor Carr.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, just follow up with Councillor Jake's comments about the firefighters breakfast this weekend that we'll be hosting at the Port Elgin Fire Hall on Emma Street. It's going to run from 8 till 11 o'clock. The fundraising, the breakfast is by donation this year. It always has been, so that we don't exclude anybody. Everybody's welcome. It also caps off this year the end of the junior fire program that we use some of the funds from that we raised for the breakfast to support that program that thankfully we were able to bring back in this year. And what a great group of kids this year. I think they're all just happy to be out of the house and back active as well, and getting back to some kind of normalness with it. And then the other thing too, just to follow up kind of with the paramedic fields, is it's paramedic service week as well. So if you see them out there, hopefully you're not crossing paths with them for the wrong weekend, but definitely give them a thank you for everything that they do, especially over the last few years. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Councillor Mayat.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll lead off with reiterating what I said earlier about doing the police survey. If you're listening and you haven't done it yet, take the 10 minutes it takes to log on and do that. I've got a couple events coming up in the near future. Must be barbecue season. On Friday, we're planting trees in support of TransCanada Energy up in the Wyerton area in support of their planned, what do you call it, a stored energy project that they're putting up there. So we're planting trees and followed by a lunch barbecue. And then we're heading straight down the road to Hanover, where there's a United Way fundraiser barbecue at the Hanover Foodland parking lot in support of the disaster they had, the big fire they had down in Hanover. And so we'll be dropping by to support that. And then lo and behold, in the after that, there's another barbecue at the launch pad in Hanover. So there's a bit of an open house at the launch pad in Hanover. So if anybody hasn't seen the launch pad in Hanover, Friday afternoon about 3 o'clock is a good time for a drive to Hanover, and you can see that and maybe have some ice cream and barbecue. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, don't eat too many burgers. The
3 barbecues in the same day. Yeah.
That seems like a lot. Anyway, that's great. I have just a couple of things to report. One, I just want to give a thank you to the Saugeen Shores Chamber of Commerce for hosting the Mayor's Breakfast earlier last week, which was well attended and gave me an opportunity to talk about some of the many great things that the municipality is up to. When you do a presentation like that, it sort of condenses all of the work that's going on that our staff are doing every day, and there's just a huge amount of work going on, and it's great to get the chance to talk about it, and so I appreciated that. And the other thing I'll mention is back in the week of the 9th, I was able to present the first $50,000 of our $250,000 contribution to the digital tomography campaign for the Saugeen Memorial Hospital. So our contribution has started, and my understanding is that campaign is going extremely well. I was at a business after hours event last week at the NII that was hosted in part by the Saugeen Memorial Hospital Foundation, and they reported there that their campaign is proceeding almost as well as the campaign for the Le Mans Sports Park. So it's going very well, and we have all sorts of great folks who are doing great work in our community to make it a better place to live.
Mr. Mayor?
So, yeah.
So I didn't cut you off. I didn't know whether you were done, but there was an event I was hoping someone would mention around the table, but I'd like to mention one event after you're done. Sorry.
Yeah, you carry on.
Well, so I mean, sorry about interrupting.
No, I was just wrapping up anyway.
I wondered. There's an event that I thought maybe someone might have mentioned. I will. It's a walk a mile in her shoes in Port Elgin and Kincardine this weekend, and it's Sunday, and it's May 29th, 12 noon, at the Queen's Bar and Grill in Port Elgin, and it's a great fundraiser, and you know, it's the whole thing is brave men will don the red shoes, high heels, and walk a mile in her shoes, and we talk about taking the pledge to end gender-based violence, and it's such an important event. I wish I could be there. I'm in Kitchener-Waterloo this weekend with my granddaughter at a ball tournament, but I can't be there. But unfortunately, maybe perhaps somebody from Collins will be there. But I just wanted to mention that event. It's a great fundraiser.
Absolutely. Yeah, the deputy mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and sorry for this. I forgot to mention, for those who are looking for a great theater performance, the Saugeen District Second Senior School is putting on the musical The Little Mermaid, and it runs from June 8th to June 11th. Tickets are available at local businesses throughout town, or contact the school, check on Facebook. But it's a great performance. I've watched the kids work very hard for the last month and a half, 2 months. And like I said, if you want to see a great performance, go see it.
It's becoming very clear that to some extent, normal is returning. There's so many events being planned around the community at this point. My calendar, I'm just flipping through my calendar, and you could talk about a dozen events that are coming up in the next couple of weeks in different places and different things going on. So it really is, I think the story of the moment is just how much is happening and how great it is to see all of that activity in our community. Again, it feels kind of like 2019 again, and the way it used to feel. So it's great. So with that, if there's nothing further, I will take a motion to adjourn. Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Mayette. All in favor? The committee will stand adjourned until 25 after the hour.
If we can get all members to turn on their cameras, it'd be appreciate it. Mr. Mayor, we have all members present. You may begin.
Okay, thank you, Linda. I'll call to order this regular council meeting, and the second item on the agenda is disclosures of pecuniary interest. Ask any member if you have one of those to declare. Seeing none, of course, you can do that anytime. We have no additions, deletions, or amendments. We have no public meeting, so that moves us on to adoption of the minutes. And we have 4 sets of minutes there for adoption, and I have a resolution that council adopt the minutes of the council meetings of May 9, 2022, and planning minutes dated May 16, 2022, and note and file the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of May 9, 2022 as presented. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councilor Grace. Any questions or comments to any of those sets of minutes? Seeing none, and all in favor? That is carried. All right, that moves us on to reports of the committee of the whole, and we have 2 reports. And the first one is a general government report regarding North Shore Train, performance measurement framework, and hours of work policy. And I have a resolution that council approve the general government report dated May 9, 2022. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the deputy mayor, seconded by Councillor Davinsky. Any questions or comments? Councillor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wonder if it'd be possible to separate out the North Shore Railroad project from the other 2?
It isn't listed in the resolution. I don't know, Linda, is there?
It's not listed.
Well, the resolution is just to approve the whole general government report.
Oh.
So I can't easily divide the resolution. What do you think?
Okay,
Linda?
I'll just express my intention to vote against that person. Okay, thank you.
Okay. So if there's nothing further, then I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. Me. All right, that moves on to the second report, which is a community services, parks and recreation report regarding medical clinics and condo improvements. And I have a resolution that council approve the medical clinics and physician recruitment condos improvements and the allocation of recommended reserve funds as outlined in the May 9th community services report. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Smith, seconded by Grace. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's carried. Just add that pause to confusion. All right, that moves on to reports of municipal officers and committees. And the first one is a staff report on 2022 staffing shortage. And there is a resolution that council approve the recommended staffing shortage strategy. Is there a mover and seconder for that resolution? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Smith. You want to make any comments to it, the Director of Community Services?
I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay, are there any questions or comments? The Vice Deputy Mayor and then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, I'll be supporting this recommendation. I think our directors, outlined a real concern that we have in our community. That we're not able to fill 12 positions, and trying to backfill with 7 contract employees, I think just makes good sense. I know some of the contract employees we've hired over the years, like the Clayton Smiths of the world, and just have been remarkable. And their work ethic is there. Not that students' work ethic is not there. I'm not saying that, but we get a lot of mileage out of these contract employees, and they come back year after year after year after year. Clayton, I use Clayton Smith as an example. He was with us for 15, 20 years, coming back as a contract employee. So they're reliable. They get the work done. Not the students don't get the work done, they do. But I just think our directors outlined a concern here, and we have to address it. And I think 7 contract employees just makes good sense. I guess my question, though, Strides, is this: that leaves a shortage of 5 spots empty, basically. And I guess if there's a price to pay here, with 5 employees, a lot of employees. It's 200 hours a week, and that's a lot of hours that would be losing out on. What gives? What do you see? What's the downside to this?
Yeah, thank you for the question, and through you, Mr. Mayor. We've had those conversations now for a couple of weeks, if not a month, heading into this, and us having to prioritize some of the services, the service levels that we're carrying on out there. So I'll use, for example, is that if there's I'll say maybe there's a park, like a neighborhood park, not an athletic field, that perhaps usually gets cut every week. Perhaps that's going to get cut every 10 days or every 12 days rather than every 7 days as what it's scheduled, because we have higher priority items that we need to get to. We know where the complaints come in at: garbage collection, washrooms, waterfront maintenance, downtowns, those types of things, our athletic fields as well. So staff, our management, Frank and Lisa, and Pete as well, on the public works side is we're having to prioritize. So there will be perhaps some service level changes, but what we want to do is develop a plan where we minimize that impact.
And just as a follow-up, Mr. Mayor, I'm supporting the recommendation. I think it's a good thing. I think the members of the public may see a slight service level change here. So we need to brace for that. It could happen. That neighborhood park might be cut, less frequently. But I just want to leave this with you, Strides, if I might. Garbage and washrooms, and I hope that's an area that if I get calls throughout the summer, and the last few years have been excellent, by the way. But where I used to get calls, a lot of we fixed the problem, is dirty washrooms and garbage containers not being emptied. And I hope with this new plan, 5 less employees, a lot of employees, right? That I just looking for some guarantee tonight that washrooms in particular and garbage collection, barrels and so on is going to be a high priority still.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. We definitely have identified as those as the priorities as well. Important to us, but also to the public.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Rides.
Yep.
You, the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you, I was going to say, I agree with the Vice Deputy Mayor. I'll be totally supporting this. But the problem of staff shortages is not just indicative with the municipality, but almost every business in town is looking for employees. I'm not sure where our young guys are working, but there are a lot of businesses that are short-staffed and they're looking. So I really like this idea of contracting, and I hope it bears fruit and we keep up the service level that the people of Saugeen Shores are used to.
Okay, thank you. Further questions or comments? I think it's true, and actually it's the fact is our young people in our community are working very hard. It's just that there aren't very many of them. There's just a shortage of young people, and so there aren't, these jobs that there used to be town jobs. The town of Saugeen Shores used to be the kinds of jobs that at least my friends when I was in school lined up for. Everybody wanted to work at the harbor. Everybody wanted to work for the town. It was a prime job, right? Everybody wanted to work for Mike Myatt, right? He was the best boss going, right? And but it was it's you know, we're just in this situation, and as the deputy mayor pointed out, everybody is struggling with the same issue. It's just we're short of people to work, and it's affecting every sector, and it's now affecting even the municipality. I do wonder, to the director, I think you have a good plan here, going to bring in some contract people to try to do some of this work. Have you looked at contracting companies to perform some of these services? For example, landscape companies to cut grass, that kind of thing. And we talked about, have you looked at contracting out the service rather than the individual?
Thank you for the question. And internally, we have not had those conversations, but we certainly can. We'll also go to HR for some advice on, because these are union employees, union jobs as well. So if we look at, I'll use grass cutting as an example. If that's identified in the collective agreement, then we have to be quite careful about how we do that. We would lean to HR for some guidance on that. What we're looking to do is to have these temporary positions for this year only. That's all that we're asking permission for, but to temporarily have these positions in place to help try and carry out the services that we currently do in-house.
I think it's a discussion that we ought to have with our unions and internally, because this isn't going to be a problem that ends in 2022. We have a temporary solution today, but we have I think a more systemic problem. And so we're going to need systemic solutions. And in the end, the taxpayer, the people of the community are going to expect us to deliver these services at full bore and at a high level. And so we can't set ourselves up to, on an ongoing basis, provide reduced services. The public expects more service. And so we have to find ways to deliver it. And if it means looking at alternate forms of providing that service, either with private sector partners or other organizations, I think we need to explore that in partnership with our, as you say, our unions, all of our employees, and obviously with senior management and council, and find a good solution that provides those services at a high level to the public. But for the time being, I think you've got a good solution here, the Vice Deputy Mayor.
I just wanted to add, Mr. Mayor, I'm just wondering, you know, the level of service may be impacted in certain parks and so on and so forth, but I'm just wondering if there's any flexibility. Maybe this is something that the director could speak to the CAO about and the treasurer. But, you know, if I obviously tried, you're continuing to recruit, and those 5 positions that can't, you know, you're going with 7 contractors, and the additional cost is 9,200. I'm just wondering if, you know, if there's any flexibility, and perhaps it's a question more of the CAO and the treasurer and yourself to discuss senior management. But, you know, if these students do come out of the woodwork and fill those 5 positions, that would mean another, what, 15, 20, 30 grand. And, you know, I just wanted to plant that seed, is that, you know, are there efficiencies in other areas that we could find that 30 to hire those additional 5 students as well. But yeah, I just planting a seed. I don't have the answer, but I just thought perhaps staff can look at that.
Okay, very good. If there's no further questions or comments, you've heard the resolution, so I'll ask all in favor. That's carried. All right, thank you. All right, so let me go back to my agenda. All right, now we're on to our second report, a staff report on Capital Sidewalk Program Award. And I have a resolution that Doug Welsh Construction Limited be awarded the contract for the 2022 Capital Sidewalk Program in the amount of $126,831.51 plus applicable taxes, and that the mayor and clerk be authorized to sign the necessary documents. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by the Vice Deputy Mayor, seconded by Councillor Grace. Any questions or comments? Councillor Jakes.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did receive several calls from residents up on Eastwood and Arlington Street asking if this would be finished this year. The sidewalks that were outlined.
Sure, we can put the question to the director.
Through you, Your Worship. Yeah, the 2 sidewalks that are outlined will be finished in this summer, the summer of 2022. Should be noted, though, that on Arlington Street, it won't go right down to River Street. That is in our capital plan, but that won't be right down to River Street this year.
When is it projected to go down to River?
I'd have to look at the actual plan and see what year it is. I can't answer that.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other further questions or comments? Seeing none, then all in favor? That is carried. Okay, and then the final report is a staff report on the Saugeen Shores Medical Building telephone upgrades, and I have a resolution. The council approved $15,634.50 for telephone, the $15,634.50 telephone upgrade hardware expenditure for the Saugeen Shores Medical Building, funded by the Southampton Medical Clinic Reserve. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Carr, seconded by Davinsky. Questions or comments? Seeing none, all in favor? That's good. Okay, now we're on to bylaws, and we have 6 bylaws up for consideration. Does anybody wish to have any of the bylaws considered individually? See any requests for that? So I'll read the resolution that the following bylaws are hereby read a first, second, and third time and finally passed and sealed this 24th day of May, 2022. 143/2022 being a bylaw to authorize a site plan agreement with 2215040 Ontario Incorporated for 1044 Goddard Street, Town of Saugeen Shores. 244/2022 being a bylaw to authorize a lease agreement with Her Majesty the Queen as represented by the Minister of Fisheries and Oceans for the leasing of Chantry Island. 345/2022 being a bylaw to authorize a sublease agreement with the Marine Heritage Society for the subleasing of Chantry Island. 446/2022 being a bylaw to appoint the CAO with the authority to approve site plans. 547/2022 being a bylaw to appoint bylaw enforcement officer, weed inspector, property standards officer, and livestock evaluator for the town of Saugeen Shores. And 648/2022 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the council meetings of the corporation of the town of Saugeen Shores. Is there a mover and seconder? Moved by Grace, seconded by Mayette. Questions or comments on the resolution? The Deputy Mayor and then Councilor Mayette.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. I just wanted to ensure that bylaw 46-2022, where we authorize our COO to sign site plan approval. This is the question we had last week, that everything is still going to come back through council for council approval and then go to the COO to look after everything.
So to be clear, the direction that council gave was that staff would report to council in an information report, staff report all site plans, receive council's input, but in accordance with provincial law, site plans must be approved by staff. So the CAO will provide final approval and will approve them all once she's heard from us.
She's heard from us. Okay, I just didn't. That part, I guess, doesn't have to be in the bylaw itself. It's just.
Well, the bylaw appoints the CAO with the authority,
good.
and it's the authority that we have to transfer to the CAO. Are there? Oh, sorry, I had Councilor Mayette. Did you have a question, Councilor
Mayette? Yes, Mayor, Mr. Mayor, thank you, and through you. I'm just reading, I think it's bylaw 47, where we're appointing the new bylaw officer and the livestock officer and the weed officer, and it outlines in there that she needs to be sworn in as a peace officer. So if that is in fact the case, I would extend an invitation that we can do the swearing in ceremony at our next Police Services Board meeting, which is on the 28th of June. 28th? And we moved it. Anyway, the next police board meeting, and if that's doable, we can get it on our agenda and get her hand on the Bible and get her sworn in as a peace officer in the town. Madison McNeil, happy to have her.
Yes, thank you for that. I'm sure that staff will reach out and find the appropriate way to give Ms. McNeil her have her swear the oath and do all those things. So I'm sure we'll be in touch. And yeah, it's good that you raised it. And certainly congratulations to Madison McNeil for her appointment as our bylaw enforcement officer.
22nd.
Okay, is there anything further on this resolution? See nothing, then all in favor. That is carried. All right, now that moves on to adjournment, and I have a resolution that this regular council meeting of May 24, 2022 hereby adjourns at 8:43 p.m. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor and Councillor Smith. All in favor?